So the big question is this: how are creators like us, who aren't built for the 9 to 5, for the people who put their passion before them being comfortable, how do we turn that passion into a living that pays the bills and a life that we love? That is the question. This podcast will give you the answers. My name is Noah Mittman, and welcome to Conversations with Creators.
Welcome to another episode of Conversations with Creators. I am your host, Noah Mittman. Yeah, you like my spiel? Joining me is, longtime friend. He was one of my groomsmen in my wedding. Justin Sheaffer, financial planner, used to be event planner extraordinaire with the Tit Jam and Jump Fest Parkour communities. Thanks for being on, man.
Happy to be here, man. It's always great to see you and chat. And I don't know, as people will probably witness, we go pretty deep. So
very deep, yeah. Every time you call, I'm like, here's another 2-hour conversation, which is exactly what I love.
Yeah, it might be why people don't pick up on my call.
They can't handle it.
You know, life's short, and I got way more attention span than 8 seconds. So we got
exactly. Which will be how long some of the clips from this are.
There you go.
Well, probably not, because we're both talkers. So I know, I'm sure a fair amount of people will click on the name because of the history of parkour, but kind of tell me the evolution of the history of parkour going into financial planning and kind of how that all happened for you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, the ongoing running joke, or at least the branding that I've been kind of riding on the coattails of is, former daredevil gun risk management.
That is,
you just kept, yeah. Because it's how do I transfer those tools of parkour and athletics, which already to the average person is like, why are you doing that? Like, why would you?
Yeah, right.
I can make the case of I don't know why we all wake up and collectively say, let's run at concrete full speed. But the real catalyst as to why financial planning was something I wanted to do is, not only just being the athlete, but being really involved with the World Free Running Parkour Federation and a lot of the organizations that started. Like, I was there in the beginning, kind of first generation American, really, of practicing parkour and trying to pave the way. Obviously, again, like all pioneers, very ahead of our time. Yet I found the passion in the event planning and creating that sense of community, because I was like, if it's all of us just siloed trying to accomplish something, like, we're not going to get a lot of success, right? So, but can we learn from each other? And then what it kind of segued into is what I noticed is, as I was getting older, the parkour practitioners and the participants of Jump Fest kept getting younger and younger.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, they might not be hearing it all or even thinking about it. But I said, but there is going to come a time where they're going to have to go from lost boy mentality to something. And I was like, and I was still figuring out, what is that transition? Like, one, can I make a career in parkour where I'm only doing business with parkour people?
Yeah.
I would argue that I don't know if anyone's really cracked that, outside of maybe store, but even then their mass appeal is to the public, right?
Yeah, exactly. So for just real fast, for context, for people that have no fucking idea what we're talking about, which is fair. Can you give me a kind of a rundown quickly of like the history of Jump Fest and what it started as and what it turned into?
Yeah, for sure. So ultimately, it's just this idea of having a jam. And so in parkour lingo, effectively think of it as kind of a retreat, but a reason to get together. And so it usually started locally, like local athletes and practitioners would get together. But I knew I wanted to scale it and start inviting people who maybe had never been to Colorado where the event was hosted to start coming. As we kind of started, the foundational team that started putting that event together. In that period, my aunt passed away from breast cancer, and I got into a really dark spot. She was there, helped raise me to a certain extent, and just my family. It was pure pain. And I was like, look, I'm 21. I don't have a whole lot of skills in terms of fundraising, but I know a lot of really talented people who can do backflips. And I was like, maybe we can do backflips for butts and raise some donations. And so what started in 2011 as just kind of this little get together of like 16 people and casually do it, we had such a good time. So then the next year I said, well, can I actually find a breast cancer foundation, a charity organization that we can get behind? And one of them said, the National Breast Cancer Foundation based out of Texas said, hey, we love it. Like, we're all about it. And so then I just started promoting it. And next thing you know, it was like 30 people. Next year, 60, and then 80. And then when we finally ended it in 2018, primarily just because of moving. And I don't know if it was some intuition about 2020 coming and events we weren't doing so hot.
You know, listen, if I wouldn't be surprised if you could just see 2 years in the future. That would not surprise me at all.
There was some real strong pull to just be like, there was something that was like, Justin, you got to shift. And I think, and in retrospect, I think what that shift is I started to notice in the parkour world, not just myself, but there was a huge lack of understanding and kind of the scarcity mindset around money and how it works. And when I was charging for a week-long event, with food, granted we're camping, it was bootstrap, but it's like, $120, $200 for the entire week, and everything is, you get there, like, couldn't even do that today.
With adult money, that's nothing. But with, exactly what you were saying, with younger and younger, and like even people in their 20s who just have no idea on, how to save, how to, I'm just getting into this. Like I was, with there as well. But like, even when we did Flow Gang Video Magazine, we were trying to sell, feature length, essentially, video for like what, $10, and people are just like, no.
Yeah, a lot of it, it's funny thing about it in hindsight, but it's really just like the stopgap that I had is I was trying to scale Jump Fest because all right, we've perfected this Colorado one, and
remind me how big it was at the biggest.
2018 was over 300 athletes that came from all over the world.
It was huge. It was a blast.
It was, it was getting too big too fast to the point where the city permit, like it was turning into a whole to do. And so, but I had launched one in Asheville as kind of a beta test, and I invited a speaker named Emma Churchman, who really helps focus around wealth and wealth building and reframing your reality, and watching all of these, about 8 of us, these really talented parkour people. Like they are capable of skills I've never even attempted, right? Like I have nothing but respect and love and admiration for everything they've done. And then when she's asking questions around parkour, like, do you ever think there's a jump that you'll never be able to do, or a flip that you just, you don't know the pathway to? And unanimously, everyone's like, no, I know the progressions, I know the drills, I know the mental exercises I do in order to prep that. No sense of disbelief in themselves. I just need a little bit more time, or whatever it is, right? I just need solve this puzzle before I commit to it. As soon as she replaced the word parkour with money, everyone just, well, I'd have to sacrifice this. I'd have to just negative the answer.
Yeah. The mindset for sure.
I felt that, but it was interesting to hear 7 other people articulating that. And I was
right.
Like, what the hell is this? And so as I started to go down that pathway, I started to recognize like, wow, like money was coming into parkour. People were getting contracts, and it just was very few professionals in our realm that had any interest in working with us, or they just saw too big of a risk that they weren't willing to help. And so I was always like, all right, being a community leader and seeing what I was like, we got to solve that problem. Parkour to be more athletes needs more professionals. That
right. Oh yeah. I love 100%.
So then I said, that's what I'm going to do. And so leading up to the pandemic, I started strategically finding work and jobs. I made the commitment that I'm no longer going to coach kids, not because I hate kids, but I was like, I'm not going to learn from 12-year-olds the skill set I need in order to. So I have to burn that bridge, make the commitment of not doing that anymore. I need to go find a different opportunity. So found an opportunity at the YMC here locally. 1, because we wanted to see if this is where we wanted to set roots. But 2, I said, where better to see who the community of Asheville is, like who actually lives here. And so I met a ton of people that way, got to a position where I was managing millions of dollars for them, memberships, over 12,000 members, and just learned a lot. Kind of back end bookkeeping, how to budget year over year. And there's relatively larger numbers than I ever had to deal with the Jump Fest, right?
You kind of put yourself into the fire, which is how to do it.
Yeah. And so then when the pandemic came, I had found out February that my wife was pregnant. Everyone got, laid off the next month. And I said, well, hey, so I'm going to go study. I said, there's never been a better time. Let me go actually learn how financial planning and investments and all this stuff work. And instead of just Googling it, right? Yeah. Looking at ads, it's like, let me go take the exams. Like, let's see what the game is. And then now that I've been in the game for almost 5 years, I'm like, I know it. I know it really well. And I've been able to back engineer it in a way where it's like, oh, this is how you uncomplicate this thing. The reason why it seems so complicated is because you're looking at 40 plus years of knowledge and wisdom that is trying to be passed down to you. And you're not focused on like, oh, where did they start? And what steps, what activities were required to get there? So
that's funny. You and Bo Burnham were the only ones that were productive during the pandemic.
That was one of my biggest inspirations. Like his special.
Holy shit!
Incredible.
Talked about it before, but like what like just an amazing time capsule of like the time. It's like, oh wow, that was real.
Yeah, and I didn't have the luxury to like feel sorry. I was like, I had a kiddo.
No, that's go time, man. I remember that feeling. It's still there, honestly. I mean, as soon as the kid's on the way until they, for the rest of your life, you're in go mode.
Yeah. It's not so much like your dreams die when you have kids. It's like, but you better stay focused and you better what now. Yeah.
It's not just you anymore. So talk to me about the kind of importance of creating a financial plan and, where to start with that.
Yeah. So I think, even from ancient Greece, right? It's like the most sure way to fail is to just not plan. Like, just don't ever put any thought into where I want to go. And I'd say most folks I sit down with, even when we talk a 10-year, 5-year plan, no one's done it. They might have done it at some point, but in terms of like, is it an actual roadmap that they follow? Anecdotally, I'm not really seeing it. I'm sure there are people out there that have established a plan, they stick to it, but it's usually in the field that excites them the most, right? And so it's rare to find like an engineer who's really focused on whatever that project is, but also in tandem on the side is doing just as much equally good work from like a financial plan or taxes or whatever it is. So the purpose of that plan really, right, if it's the way it should be designed, is what is the vision? Where is it that I want to be? And that conversation is the most important with new clients, because the amount of scarcity and limiting beliefs that already show up in meeting one it's almost paralyzed.
Astronaut, yeah, 100%. I mean, that makes sense. That's it's why they're there. I'm sure they're looking for help because they're stuck. They can't do it themselves.
Yes. And a lot of times too, it's like in a spouse situation, people are different, but a lot of times it's the wife is like, look, I'm really like, we need to get this in order. Like this part is stressing me out because like, whether it's a situation of their dual income or, hey, he's the breadwinner, but every time I'm trying to figure out what happens, like if you're not here anymore, like, and it's right. As the dude is like, I'm just working, like I'm doing me, I'm working, and they're not thinking about it. And so a lot of times it's this, right? And the goals are like, well, we want to buy a house. Well, it'd be nice to take more vacation.
Anybody who's listening is just like arms crossed, not open to shit.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, tell me more about that vacation. Like what's your bucket list? Where you want to go? Well, Italy'd be nice. Oh, Italy. That's all. What about Italy is drawing you? Well, like the architecture, the winery, whatever. And then they start opening up. I'm like, cool. Now we're getting somewhere. I'm like, dude, you're trying to sell me on your goals. And you're like, I'm like, you're not doing a good job. Like, like really tell me, like, why is this important?
Yeah.
Why is this toy or why is the house? What is it about the house? Oh, it's the sense of like, I have my porch. It's where I want to raise my kid. Okay, cool. Like now the emotional side of what it is we're trying to accomplish. So I spend a lot of time with folks there and until we really dial it in. And I feel like my job is to just articulate back to them what it is they said and not put any barriers or objections or, well, you don't make enough money to do that, right? It's like not my place.
Yeah.
What it is to get them there. So like, hey, let's get our frequency from this is how it is to this is what I want it to be. Awesome.
It's like you're transforming them in just like one conversation from limiting beliefs to growth mindset of like, where could you get to?
Absolutely. Because I read an article, I forget, it was years ago, like probably a decade ago. And I want to say it was in like Forbes, one of the big ones. But it had said, they made a compelling case that our entire concept around money is created by the age of 4, right? So honey doesn't grow on trees, money's the root of all evil, no risk, no reward. And we effectively just walk around as 4-year-olds projecting that and look for that. And that's why 70% of divorces are caused by financial strife, because what they've been taught at 4 finally comes to a conversion of we got to work together, but they're toddlers. Like it's like, and so it's about helping them navigate that and really kind of just sharing that. And then we say, okay, look, now that we know where we're headed, right? Here are the things I heard you say, and here are the things that I genuinely know that I can help you accomplish. Those topics are something that you're wanting to get off your list sooner rather than later. I said, and if they agree, like, yes, Justin, this is awesome. Like, let's solve these problems. Then we move into the actual numbers, right? So I try not to bring up any numbers in that first meeting. The second one is, okay, realistically, like, let's not fudge it, because 90% of people lie when I say how much money you make. They always overestimate, and how much money you spend, they always underestimate. Doesn't help us. Just get us tax returns, get us pay stubs, get us the financial artifacts so that I can build it out like a chessboard and say, here are the pieces. Now tell me, why did this piece get moved here? And why did that piece get moved? Not from a judgment, but it's like, but tell me
Understanding, yeah. The thought process.
Where did you learn? Oh, my dad always said, or oh, so-and-so always said online. Okay, cool, interesting. Like, it's not a judge. I just want to know why that decision was made. And then does that decision actually, is it in line with the goals that you said you want to do? So if I want to buy a house, but all your money is going to the latest and greatest video games and technology, I was like, those don't correlate. They don't lead to one another, right?
Yeah.
So then, because then once we have those things, then it's just, the job is to just educate. It's not even to sell. It's not to make recommendations, not necessarily to even implement. It's like a series of like 3 to 5 meetings based on their complexity of just saying, how would you adapt if this happens, right? If you got a huge $30,000 bonus at the end of the year, right out of nowhere, which goal is the highest priority to start funding that thing?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, that one too. Okay, cool. And if they're like real stubborn about like whatever it is, or I just don't know if we can, I don't know if we can swing that, if we can make that strategy. It's like, look, again, it's not about the numbers. It's just about working the backwards math. And it's like, what you want, what is the math equation that's required today to make that happen based on the timeline that you said? And if they're like, well, I can't do anything, I was like, okay, and which one of these goals is the least important? We can't decide, because we just have to be, again, really focused. And that's the purpose of planning, is to say, we can all hope and wish, right, for perfect outcomes. I said, but what you plan for is the proverbial shit that's going to hit the fan.
Right.
What happens if this happens? What if I lose my job? What if da-da-da? It's like, and it doesn't have to be from a negative place. It's just like, oh, well, then we put these barriers in place so that I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to spend nights freaking out. I don't also have to bend.
Well, no, and it's interesting because like there's definitely a difference between like you're, having the goals and the stuff that you want, like, oh, I'd love to get the house, the land, all that stuff. Like that's for us. And, wanting that and then being like, okay, half of this paycheck is going into savings for that. Like that's real. That's realistic. I was like, oh shit. Like, okay, I only have this much money for play money.
Yeah. Because I'd be curious about your perspective too. I love asking this question, and it's, what are the 2 main contributors to us not accomplishing our dreams? And there's really no right or wrong answer. I've got 2 that I'll share, but just curious as to what you.
I think day-to-day fires to put. So like, it's the classic joke of like whenever you have a little extra money in your bank account, your car starts acting up. So like day-to-day, random stuff you have to handle with that, I think probably. And then also, the what do you call them? Impulse buys. You're a little tipsy on Amazon at 8 p.m. and you find something fun. Like,
Sure.
So probably those. Probably, yeah. What do you have?
Love it. I keep it simple at 2 C's. It's catastrophe and contribution. Right?
I got one of them.
Yeah. The catastrophe could be, hey,
yeah, the car
broke down. Right? So the big thing would be like someone died. Right? Or hey, a business partner just went to prison. Right?
Yeah. We've had a couple where, a family friend or somebody will, a lot of times in Texas die, and we got to go down for the funeral. So, yeah, you got to go.
And then the contribution side is people just simply don't contribute towards their goals. They pay everybody else first, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where it's like, a lot of times I think people think saving or investing is money being taken away from them because they're perceiving this is money I could spend. But I'm like, no, it's like if these things are actually what you want to do, contribute to those first.
You're investing in future you with your goals before the now.
Absolutely. And that's the purpose of planning, is most people don't know what they want futures them to be, look like, feel like, smell like all those things. You like every decision I make it's not who else is holding me accountable. Obviously I have my wife and my son, but it's like, but I hold myself accountable. And then the standard I put is who do I want Justin to be? And I have a very clear image of who I want him to be at certain stages of his life. And what would that person do? And I just do that. And it's like that person would invest now so that they can get to that version of themselves faster.
No, I love that. That kind of reminds me of the Matthew McConaughey Oscar speech where he's like, "Who's your hero? Me in 10 years." And then every time it's like, "Oh, you made all this stuff. Who's your hero? Oh, I'm not even close to that. Me in 10 years."
I love that. I've heard that speech, and I didn't need like
So good, dude.
Fired all those same.
So I would love some like for people again starting out and because this is for creators, I guarantee there's a lot of debt. Do you have any practical tips for managing debt and building solid credit?
Yes. Trying to get a new way to approach that. So, because I don't want to give statements that seem like a one size fits all, but there is an element. Are you in debt for debt's sake, or are you actually aware of how to leverage the debt to create additional opportunities? Right. The way I would think about this is if you are on the debt roller coaster, right? We hear a lot of talks about, stock market, volatility, roller coaster. It's the same thing with debt, right? If you're in a scenario where you constantly have to keep swiping those cards just to get from the paycheck to paycheck realm, maybe it was student loans, all those things. Those are there. Ultimately, it can be the largest distraction. I'd say a lot of folks, when we talk about concerns in that first conversation, those always show up. Student loans, credit cards, and they prioritize those things first. But again, falling back onto Amex, like they're going to get their money, right? They've got interest rates, like they've got you on the hook. I said, but that shouldn't stop you from contributing to things that you want to do. Otherwise, you spend your entire life working to pay those things off. And now, with that said, there seems to be the primary focus of paying off those debts. But the best example I can give, right? Let's say we have two people side by side. One of them has $10,000 in a bank account. Let's call it $5,000 of debt. Okay, so they have $5,000 in credit cards, $10,000 in the bank savings. The other person had $10,000 in savings and $10,000 in credit card debt. But what that second person does is they take the $10,000 of cash and they wipe away all of the debt. Okay, so they're at 0-0. Car accident happens. Some unfortunate that they can't predict comes in. Let's call it another $3,000 expense. The person who put all their cash to pay down the debt now has zero savings, $3,000 of credit card debt. The thing they were most afraid of, they're right back where they're at. You have options on that gap. As opposed to this person now has $8,000 in credit card debt to $10,000 in cash. Has options, right? That's what it's about. It's how do I create this lever, right? And how do I get to a income standpoint and where I'm able to not have to swipe those cards anymore.
Yeah.
Right. So when I think about debt, for example, I think in terms of when I take this debt on, can I transmute it into something productive? Right? Can I eventually turn this into an asset? And at the least, can I design a payment plan on the credit card debt? Because they always ask for minimums, but can I actually create a strategy where it's not disrupting my cash flow from a day to day? I can still do some of the savings and contribute towards my goals, build those buffers, but strategically pay down the debt. And can I get it done in 3-4 years?
Yeah.
So let's just say, because this is what I see more often, right? About $2,000 a month in about minimum payments is like what a handful of Americans have in terms of like what these institutions are requiring them to pay. Okay, if we can come up with a strategy and get it down to 3.5 years, we now know that in 3.5 years, you're now going to have about $24,000 a year freed up.
Right.
Because we no longer have those debts and we're no longer swiping them. So when people say, I don't have money to invest, maybe not now, but in 3.5 years, if you can make the commitment saying, hey, once these things are wiped, $24,000 a year is going into investments to start accomplishing the goals and dreams I want.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, here at the end of the stick becomes way more rewarding because that $24,000 that is now coming into investment, you want an extra $500,000, $750,000, $1 million in an investment account by retirement age. You just transmuted the debt into that. And it was just habit. Because I would suspect in 3.5 years, like each year, you probably make more money than you did the year previous, right?
Yeah.
So in 3.5 years, not only does the $2,000 a month seem like an easier pill to swallow, it's going away. Like all the stuff that's keeping you up at night is going away, and now it's being transmuted into something more productive. So that's where I'm like, if you focus on things in an isolatory sense, the overwhelm, the anxiety, the depression, it just kicks up because it's like there's solutions over here or strategies or techniques over here, and you're just not thinking about it.
Well, I think exactly what you said. It comes down to habits. That's the big, I'm finally in the point where I can like split up the money coming in into like, there's some in the business account, there's some in the personal, there's some on a gas credit card, different like stuff like that. But like literally it's just habit. I'm, now knowing that 20% when I'm doing a 20, 40, 40 split. So 20% is going into guilt-free spending money, 40% is going into high yield savings account, and 40% is like bills.
Yep. Hey, that's awesome. That's
because it's habits. It's like every single time it comes in, it's not just, oh, I have $1,000 more. Like, no, I have $200.
Yes. Out of sight, out of mind. It's why people's 401k works, because it's deducted out of your paycheck. You don't see it. So it's like designing the same way. It's like once that money hits my checking account, whatever dates those are, 15th, 30th of each month, the next day, just have that percentage, right? I always advocate 20%, and we can get into why, but 20% of your income, just have it get siphoned off. And putting it in high yield savings is great, because if I actually need it, it's not that hard to pull back. But I'll say, I look at that separation of church and state, so to speak. Like, this is my piggy bank, and this is my like most dangerous investment tool is my checking account.
Dude, the checking account burns cash.
Money is an energy. It's an exchange, and it wants to flow. It does not want to be hoarded. It wants to be put towards a greater purpose. And those that hoard, right, and have that hoarding mentality. I think when you were talking about, once you have money, that crazy thing happens. Yeah, but I think there's also, that's where the focus is at. It's kind of that same limiting belief threshold of, well, of course, bad things will happen to me. So we'll stop going out there and looking for them. They will.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, the other thing that I know has happened to us a couple times is checking accounts can get hacked. I've lost, $400 in a day before because they just kept making charges. And then because the bank, there's only so much the bank can do, I literally was like, these are fraudulent. And they were like, they researched it for like 2 weeks and they're like, actually they weren't. I'm like, well, I didn't. Okay. I guess that's just gone now. Awesome. So if I had been out of the checking account, it would have been safe.
Yeah. And that's how that's why I think that's another part of the trap as to why people lean on credit cards, is because they have a little better protections in place for that type of thing. But again, you should not be swiping the card unless that amount of money is actually in either.
Correct.
Inflow's guaranteed to come, or it's there.
I'll tell you what, man, what has just changed how I deal with money in the last couple of months, but I got secured credit cards. So I got Chime and Current. And what they do is it's not a limit that you have that you then have to pay back. It's you start with zero and then you fund the account. And then it goes back to zero, but it shows they will report every month that you're making payments on it. So you never overspend, which I need, because I will, I've done the credit card trap, and it took, a year and a half to get out of.
Interesting. So rather than saying, hey, you have a $3,600 limit, they're basically saying, how much do you want to put on the card? You're like, all right, give it, and that's, and
that's where, that's where the 20%, that's where, that is basically my, also because it's an app, it'll be like, hey, you just spent $30, you have 250 left. Yeah. Like, it gives you up-to-date notifications, which is like, it's so good. I love that.
That's, hey, any tools that are helping keeping you focused and on track, and I think, again, it's all just, planning is just back engineering. Where do I want to go? What have I done so far? And what needs to get done? What are the inputs that are required to do that?
Absolutely.
The last piece I'll say on debt, and is I do, like, for example, if I want a house, right, and that house is whatever, $500,000, for me to go out and raise and produce $500,000 of excess cash to go buy that thing in full, not to say it's impossible, but
nearly impossible, right?
It's a huge obstacle for sure. Yeah, as opposed to Do I have a plan in place that makes me look appetizing? Do I have the right amount of cash where, I at least have a healthy down deposit that I can put down? Do I have income verification over a long enough time horizon, at least like 3 years, that proves that I can actually cash flow and afford whatever the mortgage payment would be? And so that's the purpose of that, is I go into debt in the form of a mortgage to acquire an asset. And in that asset, every month I pay, my equity goes up, but then the value of that house goes up. So I bought it on $5,000, next year it's worth $560, and then $620. And so it's like I'm paying down, but the asset's worth more. And then, because once you have the asset, now you're actually playing the game.
Right.
Right. The first hurdle has to be how not quickly necessarily, but how consistently and efficiently can I get to $100,000 of income, right? Whether that be household or individual, just like, how do we get there? Because once we get there, you have wild more options that open up to you. Like it's amazing. You're the communities, the types of problems you're starting to solve, whether it be on the negative end, like tax implication, but also just you start to find and hang out with people who are also kind of tracking where.
Right. In the growth and in the not in the. I mean, I think this is, we're talking about one of the hardest things to do, which is, something that we're on track for here is getting out of the lower to middle class and, into the middle upper, like changing, the how much, like it's insanely hard, but when you're focused on playing that game, it's, that's how your dreams actually happen.
Yes. Yeah. And it's just what resources and time and energy and attention are you allocating towards it? Because I don't know. I say it all the time. I'm like, I think for like really young folks, like there is an element of build the muscle, build the habit of always saving for yourself. Even if it's $50 a month, $20 a month, just get in the. Once a debt is alleviated, like let's say I'm financing a couch. Okay. Once that $100 a month is freed up, that $100 is going into the investment account. Now I'm doing $150 a month, right? And if you just continue to scale that, next thing you know, it's like $40,000, $50,000 a year is going into your strategy to just benefit you, not just long term, but what about 5 years from now?
Yeah.
Cool. This thing's been earning interest. That's like, sweet. I'm going to use.
Well, and that's why I like the percentages thing I got from the I Will Teach You to Be Rich book. It's like, you don't want to deal in numbers. You want to deal in percentages, because then, as you were saying, as you hopefully grow a career and grow that, that momentum, your income is going to go up. So if that 20% sometimes is like $100, next thing you know, it's 500. Next thing you know, it's 1,000, and it'll grow with you. So the plan is flexible.
Absolutely. And I think, so while they're building up that, I think the greatest return on investment is your education. Does that mean it's college route? Maybe, maybe not. There's a ton of online education, certifications, skills, trades, communication, things that you can learn. And there's never been an easier time to access any of that information. But it's like, yeah, like there's an example, right? Where it's, I saw the post, we had a conversation too, where it's like you had the best month ever in your career.
Far. Yeah.
It's like, so let's say it took 15 years to get to the period, but you now know what it took, right? Yeah. And you're like, yeah, I really don't want to go backwards. Now you just do the right activities to stay there. And now the conversation is like, let's call it $30,000 a month, right? If it's a one-off, awesome. But if you could repeat that, that's $360,000 a year. Do you feel confident that right now you could go apply for any job anywhere and be making $360,000 a year?
No.
Exactly. So that's it. Like, the risk either is, well, I could take on $360,000 of student loan debt to go be a doctor.
Right.
Or I could do what I'm passionate about and know that it's a shit sandwich the entire way. But rather than nibble on it and take it nice and slow, I'm going to gobble this thing up. I'm just going to get after it. Yeah. And now I have financial freedom. And that's like, not about the number. Each of us have a different number. And more often than not, whenever we hit it, we just push the goalpost further.
Yeah, exactly.
So it has to be like, what is the purpose, right? And if the purpose is I just don't want to work for somebody else, awesome. Probably a strong thing. But you're going to be working 10 times harder, 100 times harder than you would if you were just,
And that's a fact.
Yeah, but you got to sub the work.
Oh, no, and in the process, I mean, that's talk about it all the time, is the process is the goal. Like, if, exactly what you said, if you're if your goal is a certain money figure and you get there, you're just going to move the goalpost to the next money figure. But so like the process, like the again, habits and what you're doing every day is what it has to be driving you.
Yeah. And so you are what you repeatedly do. I forget who said it.
Yeah.
You can always, Winston Churchill said it, right?
No, that's exactly right. So this is actually on the education thing. This is perfect. So like we recently have been swapping a lot of books to read. What are your favorite kind of growth mindset and money books right now that people can check out?
Yeah, I think, and I'm bad with remembering authors, but the 10X is easier than 2X.
I have it right here. Hold up.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's downstairs. Oh yeah, it's right there. Dr. Benjamin Hardy.
Yeah.
Oh wait, that oh no, it's Dan Sullivan. Dan Sullivan.
Is right. Yep. Yeah, that one is just amazing in terms of just reframing your reality of like truly like working hard it will only get you so far. It's really about working smart. And it advocates for like, hey, there is some benefit to recognizing what you're not good at. Not from the standpoint of like go get better at those things. It's more about get to a point where you can offload the things that you aren't good at, you hate doing as quickly as possible. And just retrain your brain to be like, it will work, provided you have the right person. And so it's like just by your back. Like, hey, here's what I need, here's how we can mutually beneficially grow.
No, but that's massive. I mean, that was one of the big things that honestly, when COVID hit, it taught me because I had been having a pretty good year in 2019. And then COVID hit, everything went away. And I was like, okay, I was in the trenches. I realized like I'm a terrible fucking manager. I'm not good at managing people. So now I have, once we get back to the point where we need to bring on people, I have a chief operating officer that will be managing the freelancers that, work for us. I'm not good at that. I need to, again, rather than, and I think it's also about like what gives you energy and takes energy away from you. Because if you're filling your day with stuff that takes energy away from you, you're going to be, that's not sustainable.
Yeah, that's your attention and your focus. The most valuable resource is it's being allocated on problems that you don't care about.
Yeah.
It's okay. I think people feel guilty about X, Y, and Z. It's like, look, I could spend time doing bookkeeping, or I could spend my weekends every weekend. I can spend doing laundry and cleaning, or I can outsource those things so that I can be a better father. I can outsource those things so that rather than spending all weekends, we can go network. My wife and I are both entrepreneurs who work for ourselves. It's like, the only way we get clients and make money is when we meet new people. So let's go instead. I mean, I can stare at my dishwasher all week. It doesn't do anything for me. So it is. It's like, but it took a long time to get to that point. And I think every entrepreneur and business owner, eventually, you have to master the ability of offloading. And it's exercise in trust, an exercise in accountability. And it just allows me to just like, what is it that I want to solve, right? Imagine if who painted the Sistine Chapel? Michelangelo?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know. Someone's probably screaming at us on the.
How dare you?
But imagine if he's up there trying to paint the Sistine Chapel, and someone's asking him like, "Hey, did you file your taxes? Hey, did you post on your social media 10 times this week?" Like the dude's painting, and the world. It's like that's what focus is, and that's one of the examples in the 10X book they talk about. Is
nice.
It didn't start there. It was a series of 10Xing his mindset each time, where it was like, oh, this art project was a high enough commission where I could then do that, which then attracted new people to go, oh.
Yeah.
And the Vatican being like, will you make it so that when people walk in here, they know God exists?
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah, exactly. No, and I mean, the focus there is huge. Let's talk. I love all of that, and I agree. And I think something that I'm interested in your perspective of, because there's so many stories swirling around it, is cryptocurrency. What are your views on crypto? Because I know it's kind of the hot popular thing right now. I don't have any, but
yeah.
I
mean, I'm not going to pretend that I'm smart enough to know all of the applications of what that technology can do. I would suspect that the underlying technology is where the value's at. Will the coin necessarily be the thing? I don't know. But again, here's what's funny. When I talk to people about their goals and the vision for themselves, I've never had a single person. I've met with over hundreds and hundreds of folks. Never once have they brought up cryptocurrency. Yeah, it's always been, I want my family to be in a better position than where I started. It's the, more time for vacations and family. And they've never brought up crypto. Now they might have, when we get into more of the data, they might have crypto on their balance sheet.
Yeah.
But then when I ask, hey, when crypto, like what's the amount that when crypto hits it, like you're selling that position off to then go fund the dreams that you want? Just like the debt roller coaster, most people are just riding the crypto roller coaster with no end in sight. All right. So it's like, cool, you've got it. But how is that any different than owning Coca-Cola stock? Or how is that any different than owning, a bond from Microsoft? Like it doesn't, like it's just a tool. Right. And so some people make it their identity, which I think is wildly it's not a good strategy. I can crypto, right? At least how I perceive it on a balance sheet is really like the equivalent of gambling in Vegas.
Yeah.
Right? What can you allocate towards it that you wouldn't care if you lost overnight?
What happens when Elon sends a tweet and it goes down by 5 points?
Because you can't control any of that stuff. That's the thing. Rate of return. What investment? I mean, you can obviously pick investment selection, but like trying to pick the right stock that in 30 years is going to be the most valuable. Like, I don't know, unless you have a crystal ball or you just look at that stuff all day. But more often than not, humans have been wrong, right? I mean, look at the 08, 09 housing crisis. Even when people were screaming from the rooftops that this is coming, people kept doing it because there was money to be made. So someone is benefiting off that. The other thing I'll say, whether it's crypto or anything else, by the time it has hit the mainstream, any of the actual rate of return, like opportunity, is gone.
Yeah.
And what you are getting is you are now getting the seconds of people that took advantage of it early on are now trying to offload the risk to you because you don't know any better, right? A lot of times the best investments to do, right, just over a long enough time horizon when you look back, you can't predict what's going to happen in the future, but it's whatever the masses are doing, right? Whatever has them fear, like if they're fear, be greedy. If everyone's selling, right? Typically like Warren Buffett, the strides have been, while the masses are freaking out and they're selling everything.
That's when it's cheap and you can get on.
Yeah. Vice versa, right? If the wealthy start selling.
I think generally paying attention to what Warren Buffett is doing is a good idea.
Yeah. And it's, and I know like Alex Ramosi talks about all the time, but it's like, but to create the conditions that created a Warren Buffett, right? It's like, you can't recreate it. So even though you're like, oh, he's selling that position, but he owns 100,000, 100 million shares of that. You own one. It's like you're talking $50 as opposed to like 50 billion.
The drop in the bucket versus your entire bucket.
Yeah, it's like to get from 0 to 100,000 is damn near impossible. It is a grind any way you structure it. To get from 100,000 to 500,000 is way easier, and to get from 500,000 to 1 million plus is inevitable because your money is just churning money out for you.
Is honestly, because I mean, full transparency, I literally just maybe 2 weeks ago put in like the first real amount into the high yield savings, and seeing like you're gonna have 15, like it was it was like $3,000, so it wasn't but seeing the level of like actual making money finally. Where it was like in a month, you're going to have $15 more. In a year, you're going to have $100 more. And I'm like, imagine when this number's $10,000. Like, that's actual freedom and actual, like, we always talk about the, money trying to work for itself. And it was just nice to see actual result, like the numbers on that finally.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. And I think that's where a lot of folks, again, it's like us talking about, like in NBA, for example, right? We're talking about, I don't know, you're going to have to help me with names, but like the Kobe Bryants. I just want to keep putting a little bit in because I don't know either, right? The point I'm trying to make is whoever the cream of the crop is right now, it's what they're doing is still the fundamentals. It's still dribbling.
Oh, yeah. Well, it was like the Steph Curry documentary, like the guy wins MVPs and championships. What's he doing the next day? Back in the gym, working on a shot.
Yep. Yeah. And it's, what are the inputs? And so that's where I tell folks is like, look, there's a lot of folks do want to, it's like, well, more often than not, I find it's like, it's the real estate. Well, I don't trust the stock market. I don't trust stuff. I want to put all my money in real estate. I'm like one of the few planners that's like, go for it. Yeah. So like, again, it's like, what is the goal, right? If we sit down and you say, hey, Justin, in 10 years, I want to liquidate the entire investment portfolio on the stock side to then start building my real estate empire. I'm like, cool,
Yeah, like you got to play it.
Timeline. Can we actually leverage those tools in a way that will work? And if not, what alternatives exist? And so it's not about which product or which strategy is the best. It's more about which one is optimally going to get us the desired goal, right?
Yeah.
So it's all those things, right? And I think entrepreneurs, like, some of the best ROI you can have is reinvesting back in yourself, right?
So all I do.
I go get a loan for $30,000 to then launch. It gives me the resources to hire the person who can then help me launch the next thing I'm trying to do. But we have a proof of concept, and that thing can start making $60,000+ a year. It's like, sweet, you've effectively just doubled your money, like 50%.
I have a funny story to tell you, actually, because we talked about your awesome idea of, like, when I was trying to get the new computer, to be like, hey, you should go apply for a loan at the bank because you know the money's coming in, so you can just, like, build your credit. I told them that situation. I was like, hey, like, I'm coming to you to build my credit. I have the money for this. I'm gonna buy it anyway. I just want to go through you. It's still fucking denied.
Really? Oh.
My credit's terrible. I'm trying to build it, but I was like, they literally were like, no. I was like, I have them. Like, I was like, I told them like 3 times. I'm like, like, the money's in the account. I'm just trying to, like, make the process work here. And they're so like, I'm so sorry. I was like, it's fine. I'll just fucking go buy a computer.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's because that's like a whole other sector of, like, what's the bank, what are the banks doing?
Yeah.
And, a lot of folks just don't feel. People feel
It's cracked me up with, like, such a clear. I was like, I have a plan here. I have a path. If you guys can just let me do this, and they still were like, nope. So what are some financial trends you're seeing? And I don't know, like, what's interesting to you right now in the financial sphere?
Yeah, what's interesting to me now is it's more about the strategy and how different financial tools interact with one another, right? Which is really hard to do in a silo, right? So if I was saying, hey, I just want to help you with just your investment portfolio, but I wasn't taking into account the other assets you've got, whether it be a real estate, maybe it is crypto, maybe it's some of the protection sides, like the life insurance side. If you're a business owner, like, taking a look at, like, yeah, what if you got sued? Like, how does that impact these things? And the reason for that, like, the stats that interest me the most is that back in the 70s, the average American was saving between 20 and 25% of their income. That's the average American. Where we're at now today is less than 5%.
Yeah.
So it's really not about. It's not that we're stupid. It's not that we don't care. It's not that we're maybe there is a component of ignorance. Like, ignorance is bliss, right? Just head kind of buried in the sand, just not knowing those numbers.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. Like, that's why those people who are in their 70s were our age, and they were working their butts off, and they were shaving. That's why they're experiencing the lifestyle they're experiencing now. And so naturally, it's like,
where was so from those stats, where did the other 20% transfer to?
My suspicion is it's just never been easier to spend money. I just go boop now. Even to pay my mortgage back then, I literally had to cut a check, walk my happy butt over there and deliver it. Right?
Yeah.
Immediately out.
And there's definitely a thing to money in your wallet versus the card in your wallet. Like, seeing money disappear out of your wallet is way different than, the king for Apple Pay. Like,
yeah, but even think coffee shop, right? Like, the price of Starbucks, like, what, $7-8?
Yeah.
Then they flip the thing around, and you want to leave a 20% tip, and you just like, I don't want to be a jerk, so boot. So it's like, all right, $11 or whatever has just now gone for a
right, just because you're in the habit of it. Now, I refuse. So I'm a great tipper. I've worked, service industry for a couple of years. I understand it. I think all kids should have to be a busboy at some point, or a server, to understand that. But I'm sorry, when I'm at the Rockies stadium and you crack a beer for me, I'm not going to fucking tip you. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, but it's the habit. It's
the habit, right. If the option is there, and they always say it's always the same thing too. There's just a few questions for you. I'm like, I know what you're doing. You're like, but no. Again, I tip everywhere I can, there's just those certain places where you literally turned around and gave me a thing. I'm not giving you 20% of this.
Yeah, but again, Netflix, Xbox Live,
Yeah.
Adobe, Zoom, all these things, $10 here, $12 there, and it's
Man, it adds up like crazy.
yeah, your subscriptions are $300 a month. You know,
That's why I sell a subscription package with video marketing, because everybody understands the subscription model now.
yeah, because it's just it's an easier pill to swallow.
Terminology.
Yeah. So that, I really think that's where it's at. Also around that period of time is when the tools, the vehicles like the 401k actually got created. And people don't know anything. It's just been around. No, it's only been around since the 70s. In fact, they've been around, I think, since like the early 90s or something like that.
No shit.
But like, so it's no wonder you don't know how these tools work, because they're still young. They're brand new.
And I get honestly, I get the head in the sand thing, because when you have, when you're paycheck to paycheck and you're looking at like, I hope I have $100 right now. You don't want to look. You're just, I did years of the, spray and pray, where it's just like, hopefully this goes through. And that's, how you get your card declined at the, McDonald's drive-through, and you're just like, what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah. And I think it's, like those who check their bank account first thing in the morning, I think statistically make significantly more money than those that check their emails or their social media, because it's the tone for like, look, if I'm going to be anxious about my situation, me looking at the bank account, I'm in control of that.
Yeah.
You get someone else's email and their agenda for me this morning. That just pissed me off. And then social media, now I've just compared myself to whoever.
Right, yeah, exactly. Compared yourself to the millionaire people that you follow, even though they've put in all the work. Those are the guys that look. Those are the people that look at their accounts, because it's, man. Well, and honestly, that was a big thing for me. Like, seeing the low numbers in there pissed me off so much over so many years that I was like, I'm fucking done having this small amount of money. I'm going to grind my face off and make this happen.
Yeah, it lights the fire, right? And and you're going to have the days where it's overwhelming, and you start to wrap up your self-worth in that, but it's like you are just growing. I think that's the huge push towards, the sense of grind, and you got to have grit. And I was like, name anything that grinds for an extended period of time and ends up being healthier than how it started. Like, need a bit more of like, it's gardening. Like, it takes effort. You got to get out.
Yeah, definitely the gardening thing. I love that. You're growing your life. You're growing your finances. You're tending to it.
Yeah, because you might meet today and you pitch me your service for video editing, and I'm just like, look, as an advisor, I know my numbers. And I know what my plan, like that was not on my docket for 2024, but I'd be open to exploring it in 2025, or even if it happens in 2030. But I've just scaled to the point where, like, now I can come to you and be like, hey, I know you were pitching me like a $2,500 a year thing. I want to get the $60,000 package. That get. Because now,
this happened. Like, I literally just had a client. It was, the biggest job I'd ever had, was because we originally talked about like a $2,000 package and a $5,000 package. And then he emails me like right before the strategy meeting. He's like, let's just throw in a 10,000 just for shits and giggles. And then they went with the 10.
Yeah. That's it. If the quality of the work and your value proposition, like your messaging and like the problem that you're trying to solve for people is clear.
Yeah.
Then the cost thing is irrelevant, because if cost is their biggest objection, it's who they are. It doesn't matter. You could say, hey, what if it was free? And they're still like, man, but they don't see the value. They don't understand.
Value prop is everything.
Exactly.
Understanding their goals. And this, we can have a whole sale. We should actually do another podcast just about sales, because I think that we can go deep into that.
Spoiler, it's just relationships. That's all it is. It's like the more you push, the more resistance. The more you pull them towards a better idea. All right.
Yeah.
Hey, like, anytime someone gives me an objection, I'll just kind of give this aside because I think it's helpful. Anytime anyone gives me an objection about anything, I just immediately affirm it. And I just say, but in my experience, this is what happened. It's like, oh, I need more time to make a decision. Awesome. Take as much time as you need. But in my experience, I've never seen more time equate to a better decision making. I have seen better information make better decisions. Is there any information I can provide you that would make you feel more comfortable making a choice today?
I love the question. I love that question of like, say you're at a 5 right now of ready to go forward with this. What questions do you have that I can get you to a 10?
Yeah. Yeah. On the scale scale 1 to 10, where are you at? How important is this project to accomplish? Yeah, I'm at a 4.
When it's like I talked with a previous episode with Nick Metzger, who runs the Video Business Academy, that really helped me out with the sales processes. He calls it selling like a doctor. So you're gonna ask all the questions, you're gonna get all the diagnosis to really figure out what their actual goals are, and then you sell them on their goals. It's not about the day rate. It's not about how much. It's like, are you trying to get more revenue? Are you trying to get more status? Do you want to just feel good about yourself because you did this? Like it can be anything, and it's all of those are totally fine answers.
Yeah. No, sales is all about them and being honest and recognizing in yourself, can I actually solve this problem? Because if I actually help them solve the problem, there's nothing to sell.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. So, yeah. Love
I
that.
love that. All right, so we're gonna wrap this up because I know you got stuff. But I have a couple quick fire questions for you.
Please.
So, what is one of your favorite quotes and why?
Oh boy. Yeah, my favorite quote has to be, especially in just the way that the world seems to be moving, is wherever you point the finger is where the power resides.
Mm.
So it's what you can just be blaming everything. It's their fault. My boss is a jerk. I don't make enough money. Da da da. But until you point back at yourself and just say, what can I do differently? Where did I mess up in that interaction? You immediately eliminate the power. And you could take that all the way back to saying, hey, what if on some cosmic level, I contractually chose my parents? You literally cannot be a victim for anything because you're like, I already chose those, It's like, so, and then it's just like, look, it's like, if nothing else, it's like, they've taught me, like, if I had a terrible relationship with, they taught me what not to be. The rest is just learning what I want to be. Right. And
No, that's honestly been a huge thing for me and I just posted about this recently, is like the having a better life when you explore yes first rather than no.
yeah,
That's been huge. Like, because I've had a couple of times where like the kids will ask to do something, and my first thought will be like, oh, I don't want to deal with this. I'm like, no, and then Shorty's like, why? I'm like, I don't know. Go for it.
yeah. It's just, it's kind of like a weird community, or we just, we tend to just be, especially if you're really driven, you just tend to be in your own world. But it's, recognizing like, oh, they're their own little humans too, and they,
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, and to your point of like the accountability, it's that famous saying of when you're pointing at somebody else, so you got three fingers pointed back at yourself.
Yeah.
Because that's 3 times. It's like, that's what I love honestly about entrepreneurship is it's on you. That's it. If anything that happens, it's your company, it's on you.
Yep.
Even if somebody else screws up, it's still your fault.
Yep.
Because you hired them.
And I think all of us deep down know what we need to be doing. Like that's how, yeah. Like intuitively we know. I was like, I know why I'm not where I want to be. And I think, a lot of, again, it's like, especially around money, there's always a lot of blame. Well, my parents never taught me this. Again, my boss just doesn't pay me. I'm like, the reason why you're broke, right, is just look in the mirror. You know why. You know why. Now go do the opposite of whatever it is that's keeping you there. Just do the opposite.
There's no $1 million loan coming your way.
No, and it's just time. Like that. I think that's like when you're talking about like it's not about the destination, it is the journey. The work is the mission. Like that is the purpose. Like, so finding the work that feeds into your lifestyle and lightens you up to the point where you want to get your family involved. Like I want my kids to know my goals.
Yeah.
That way I have to tell them, hey, I can't do something on this weekend because daddy's got to do blah, 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 so that I can achieve the goal that I say, oh yeah, Dad, I totally got it.
100%, dude. I do exactly the same thing. I'm like, hey, I need to be on this. You guys need to be quiet right now for an hour so I can do this presentation so I can get more money for us so we can go do more fun shit.
Yeah.
And they'll get that.
Yeah. No, they totally, especially, it's like, because they're thinking in rewards too, right? And it's like, it's not necessarily a monetary thing for them, but it's like the experience is what they're after. And I think that's what we're all experiencing. Like I can make $100 million, but if it was with people that I just couldn't stand, that it's like, they're just gross or whatever, like I don't really feel all that good about it.
No.
As a public, I work with people that I really align with, and still maybe I don't make that same amount of money, but hey, like this is way more fulfilling. I feel like I'm giving to a community that really appreciates this into action.
All right, so you're a branding. I've known this for so long because you're just a branding kind of genius. So this might be an easier question for you. You may have, and because you think about goals so much, what's the title of your memoir?
Title of my memoir. Oh man. I've had a few that I've been floating around.
I didn't do it. Most people are like, I have no fucking idea.
Like I like the play on words of like when you hear like mental gymnastics, but I do like. I've been toying around and actually have a couple pretty serious pages written just conceptually about like financial free running, but like tying those worlds in together. Like what tools did I actually learn through parkour that translate over
That's
into
dope.
the world?
And I mean, that is such an interesting, I mean, that, because it also hits the general public too, of like, financial free running. That's dope.
In tries this by story.
By the way, I usually reverse engineer this to be the title of the episode. That's kind of perfect.
Yeah, that's why I've been toying around with those hashtags, just to get those things going. Because I do think, again, I'm not your traditional financial advisor.
No, yeah.
I didn't go the college route. I, have extreme discipline from both gymnastics and the parkour. But I've just found like the same sweaty palms you get when you watch a parkour video and someone's super high up, people get that same visceral reaction when they start thinking about their retirement. Or they
Absolutely.
like all these inevitable hurdles that are coming. The difference is like that scene in the Matrix where they say you never make it your first time, right? When Neo's going to go for his first jump. It's the same deal. It's like if you want to think of that roof gap as your retirement, the day that you're not able to work, or hell, you want to take all the way to like what happens when I die? Like to all the assets, all this hard work, like who's taking the business over, whatever it is.
Yeah.
That is inevitably coming. Like, unless you're a vampire and you live forever, like it's happening. So do you want to prepare, dress rehearse for that leap and put some of the reps in to start building the confidence? Or do you want to take the jump and just miss it?
That's funny too. I think that also really applies to like just business ownership in general. Like you have to fall on your face at least, like really fall on your face at least once, or twice, if not more, to actually, because then the next time you get to the point where like you could fall on your face, you've already been there, so you know how to handle it.
Yes. Yeah. Dude, it's just about, it's just about preparing. I think we all know where we want to be. Like we all like at least have some semblance. Maybe we haven't had anyone who sparked it in us where we've just kind of lost our soul, so to speak. We're just kind of going through the grind of stuff. But it's like, but if we know where we want to go and we have the realistic idea of what that platform is and how far are we from actually closing the gap, like that knowledge is what's most powerful.
Yeah.
And I think having someone, at least the way that I'm really branding myself within the financial industry, is that I don't really like the word coach because it has weird connotations, because we've all been approached by coaches and it's like, oh, what is it you do? Right. But it's like, but I'm trying to walk the walk alongside the clients and just say, look, here's what I'm doing. Like the recommendations I'm making, like if they suggest, what is it that you're doing for your family? I'm like, I have no problem sharing that. I really don't. Cause I'm like, I want you to know what it is I'm doing. And if they go, well, why didn't you make those recommendations to me? It's like, because you're
not in the same spot. Right.
You think everything you talked about, like 3 of the goals you mentioned, it never even occurred to me as something that's even remotely on my bucket list.
Yeah.
I was like, but I heard you. And based on what you said and based on the research and doing all the work on the back end, like these are the strategies that are most likely to get you there.
That makes sense.
To kind of wrap up this nicely towards like give people some actionable things to do. Like just go back to fundamentals. Just always think fundamentals. When you're getting overwhelmed by the talking heads and world wars and whatever the hell else is going on in the world, just know that historically it's just time is ultimately what produces the result. And investments will change. Companies will come and go. Like whoever would have thought that Walmart would ever be like on the brink of like not existing anymore, right? Like no one saw an Amazon coming out of nowhere, but it's like the only constant is change. And you can't control any of those things. I can't control the rate of return. I can't control what companies become the monoliths. But what I can control is, am I organized? Like, do I actually have my finances in order to the point where I understand them? Because if I were to, I ask people all the time, hey, how much is in your investment account right now? How much are you contributing to your 401k on a regular basis? How much is your like death benefit on your life insurance? And most people don't know these answers. And I was like, see, that's problem number one, is you don't have a realistic grasp of where you're at. And I'm not saying you need to check it every single minute of every single day, but you have to at least quarterly, like
have an idea. Yeah.
You just be like, hey, family meeting. Like, here's where we're at. Because then you get the next generation involved. You start to facilitate those conversations. And in a practical sense, when you go to file your taxes with your accountant, what's the first thing they ask you for? All of your financial documents. We need your W-2s, your 1099, right? I want to go buy a house. What's the mortgage lender need? I need your tax returns, proof of income, So by getting this organized, you now have it, you've eliminated the hurdle. It'd be like people who say, I want to go to Europe. I've never been. Do you have a passport? No. Then that opportunity is just not going to. So get organized is step one and take a realistic look of where we're at. And then from there, what I typically say is, again, when we're talking about the catastrophe and the contributions are what stop us from doing those goals, is take a real look at whether it be employer benefits or just that protection side. What happens if I lose my job? What happens if I get sued? What happens if I get disabled? And what happens if I die? How would my family adapt?
Yeah.
Right. And then those are the easiest things to offload to other industries, whether it be through insurance or legal documents, whatever it is. It's like, but once you have those in place, you now can sleep better at night because you're like, all right, I know my income is protected. So I can control that. I can do the work to make sure that the income is there. And if anything happens to me, the income still comes flowing. That doesn't have to stop. Once you have that, then you say, okay, the only other thing I can control is how much I'm prepared to contribute. So percentages I love. And I advocate previous generations easily could have gotten away with doing 10% of their income, right?
Yeah.
As the different generation, we've seen the largest growth in terms of valuation of companies ever, right? Will we get to experience that again? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. But just the time in which they were born, the kind of larger generation that they were, just had a lot of really cool opportunities that we're just not experiencing now. We're experiencing kind of the downside of that, higher inflation, yada, yada, yada. So, but what I can do is, like I said, if it's 20%, right, which is what I advocate for every client to do, I said a big minimum 15% of your income, just if you're trying to retain the same experience of lifestyle you're experiencing now in retirement. So I'm not even talking about, do you want a vacation home? Do you have grandkids to fund their education? I'm saying just to take care of yourself and your spouse, right? 15%, right? My wealthiest clients, I have 24-year-olds who save 45% of their income. They're taking full advantage of the fact that they still either live at home, wherever but they are putting in the work now,
right?
So they inevitably leave the nest after they graduate, wherever it is. They have a nest egg. They have options. Like that's what financial freedom is do I have the option? Am I a boss? A jerk? Do I really want to keep kissing his butt? No. And I don't.
Options is financial freedom. That's literally it.
That's all it's about. It's not about the number. It's like, because for you, I mean, for somebody that could be, I've got 10 grand in the bank account. I don't need to listen to this guy bossing me around.
Yeah.
Because I know that within the next 3 months, I can find a job, right? I have that or I have that skill set that's so highly desirable that I know I can find other. So if this guy's going to keep being, wanting me to push over and he keeps disrupting whatever it is I'm trying to do, I've got the option. Yeah. And then as those things scale, right? It's just the numbers just scale. Whether you're making $800,000 a year or $80,000, it doesn't matter. The point is like, even if I'm making $800,000 a year, and let's say I'm only saving 5%, right? If I told that number, whatever that number is, to the person who's only making $80,000 a year, that person's like, holy cow, that's my entire salary. That
right. Sure.
I was like, but from their perspective, they've lived off $800,000 a year for 30 years, and they've only been saving 5% of that. When they eventually retire, they're going to be like, crap. Like our entire lifestyle has to change drastically. So I don't know. And for me, I'm like, look, if 20% equates to me having the same experience, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then I asked the question, I said, what if for 1 year I really cracked down and I saved 80% of my income? And people will go, that's nuts. I'm like, is it? Like, do I really need the country club membership? Do I really need that membership? Do I really need these things for 1 year? Right.
That's the whole kind of living your rich life that one of my favorite guys, Ramit Sethi, talks about, or Sethi. But the rich life is spending extravagantly on the stuff that you love and cutting costs mercilessly on where you can cut costs.
Yeah, it's draining. It is. And it's, again, and that's kind of like, there are some people that will do that. That's like the David Goggins mindset.
Right.
He's getting after it. But but the point that you're trying to make is like, look, by tackling those bigger frogs now and building those muscles, there will be times where I need to sprint, right? So think of like, say 80% of your income for a year. That's a sprint. That is hard, both emotionally, and so you're saying no to a lot of things. But in exchange, what I would hope is you're saying yes to the things that matter most to you. So that's, I don't have any clients who've taken me up on that extreme, but I use it as a buffer to just shed them. Like, as a principle, you've effectively expedited your retirement date by 4 years.
Yeah.
By just doing that. Now, I understand. It's like, I can't, But again, simplicity is passing, dribbling, shooting. Get organized, protect the income, because your income is what allows you to eliminate liabilities and add to assets, right? So I don't care if you have a beautiful home. If you lose your jobs, get disabled, die, who's paying the mortgage?
Right.
You don't have money. So it's like, cool, you got the asset, then what? Right? So it's that. It's like, I can control that. And then how much is it that I actually want to save? And I would just say, you 20%, whatever that is. Because if nothing else, you've put the 20% aside. At the end of the year, let's say you owe taxes. Well, cool. You can use some of that 10% of that. Rather than keeping on filing extensions and having more loom and doom, looming over, like, okay, the taxes are due. Rather than fighting that, let's pay the taxes. But in the meantime, can I structure things in a way where I can mitigate my tax burden? You can, but not if you're not saving first.
Right. You need the money to be able, you need the money for the options.
You need options. So that's it. And again, I don't care if 20% means $20 a month, awesome. Like, just do it.
It's something.
Yeah. I find after 3 months of implementing any new saving strategy, after 3 months, any weird objections, well, what if this it goes away. And like we all know, you just adapt. None of us know how kid shows up and all of a sudden we just know what to do, like, intuitively.
Well, and there's also, like, what I found too recently is there's just, knowing that there is money in savings, like, no matter what, we're going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's like, because you know how to make money.
That's the thing.
Once you know that, it's like, oh, this isn't, like, there is a luck component. But again, if my plan revolves around luck, I'm probably effed, right? But it's like, that's why it's like the company that, the firm that I'm with, and I chose kind of the joke I use, but I'm serious. It's like, it's called consolidated planning, not consolidated wishes. Like, we can wish all day, but until action is taken, it's a moot point. We're just talking hypotheticals. And so I always have to find a way to bring people back to the present and be like, hey, out of our control. Like, here's what is in our control.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. And it's just like, again, I think finding a way to make it theirs. Because it's like, look, I can't care more about your finances than you do. Right. All I can do I can provide the data points. I can help provide solutions and guide. But at the end of the day, you've got to drink the water. You've got to walk the walk. All those other metaphors.
Yeah.
But I really think people are capable of way more than they give themselves credit to. It's just, again, it's where you focus that attention. If the first thing in the morning is you're going right into, I'm being advertised to, comparing myself to influencers, my emails, like.
No, I mean, and just straight up, like, on my calendar, and this was part of the, one of the things that Video Business Academy taught me is first thing in the morning, I do cash flow tracking. What came in, what went out, where we, just boom, takes 5 minutes. I know where I'm at. I can track the month, and you're just aware of it. Because I think that's the biggest thing that people are scared of, is the unknown. Like, if you don't know the bank account, you're scared of the bank account. If you understand it, you're like, okay, cool. I have this much.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's like, and we're like, well, Justin, I don't work for myself. I'm locked in a W-2 job, and my boss really doesn't pay me enough. I'm like, again, point the finger back and be like, have you ever had a conversation about what skill set that business owner would find most valuable?
Right.
And then go get those skills and then provide this. Like, it's, if you're going to go the W-2 corporate route, you got to climb the ladder. Right. And there's really only 2 ways to do that. One, status. And you get caught in that trap where I've got whoever's ahead of me and I want that role.
Beat them. Right.
Got to knock them down a peg and talk crap. Or you just say, dude, I'm going to outwork and outskill this person. Right. And I'm going to build these projects on the side where even if my boss says, you know what, I don't want to do it, whatever. I'm still going to take the time to develop those skills, and I'm going to prove that it works.
Yeah. And they see the effort.
Because even if your boss doesn't see the value in that, you've built the skill and they can't take that away from you.
You're investing in yourself.
Yeah. So it's like, do that. And then if you're entrepreneurial, right, where you are working for yourself, it's like, look, there's a difference between like kind of a service-based industry that you and I are both in, where it's like all we've really done to a certain extent is we've created a really time-intensive job for ourselves in the hopes that our income will increase and we continue to respond to. And then once we get to that point, then you start scaling. And as you start to bring on employees, but then the game isn't about, I need to do the video editing. It's you have a team of people and your job now, manage them to produce the result that ultimately leads to more revenue. Like, it's just this constant thing, but it's like, but that
Constant growth, no matter where you're at.
it takes time. And I think anyone who thinks that it just happened overnight, it's like, look, it's so easy to identify the people who were born on third base, but thought they, right? And it's like, I just don't invest a lot of time into that because it's like, my background is not that. So already I can't resonate. I don't care if you got $1 million and you want me to manage it. I'm like, I don't care. Like I'm sorry.
Yeah. Different life.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I know you got to get going. Let's I'm gonna roll out the red carpet for you a little bit here. Let people kind of know what you got going on and where to find you and what all you're doing.
Yeah. So as I alluded to before, company's called Consolidated Planning. You can go to C as in consolidatedplanning.com. It goes into just the process. Obviously we have licenses all over, but if there was other advisors that you wanted to meet in person, like you kind of start getting that network going. But I think more importantly is a ton of resources, blogs, just from a financial planning perspective, like what are actual action steps you do. It's got a ton of resources there. Me personally, I spend most, like social wise, the internet, I spend most of my time on LinkedIn because that's where my clients are. But I'm posting a lot of content, whether it be like the financial freeing bro. So it's me actually doing parkour, but tying that into just different financial tips and exercises.
Dope.
Keep it refreshed. But outside
Yeah, seriously, audience, if you're wanting to make more money, if you're in a service-based business, get on LinkedIn. It is Facebook for people with money.
Yeah, and you don't get any of that like weird emotional clout. Like people are there to do business.
Yeah, they expect it. It is business based, and that's just it's the right place to be to grow yourself.
And the more to the point you are on LinkedIn, the better. So for example, not fluff. It'd be nice. Maybe we can grab coffee one day. Please email me back. It's hey, is financial planning on your list for 2024?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what's nice is people expect it. Literally, I'm like, I'll ask one question if they're, called Trojan horsing it. Basically, it's like, are you still doing this blank? If they say yes, like, cool. Are you interested in video marketing? And they can say no or yes. And if it's a yes, then we go to the next step. It's simple to the point, and people are going to get pissed at you for that on LinkedIn.
Yeah, because it's just a gateway to get the one-on-one interaction.
Yeah, they're all there. It's online networking.
Yeah. So that's where I reside in the virtual world. But if you want to get in touch with me directly, you can do Justin.Sheaffer. It's SHEAFFER @cplanning.com. You send me an email. Just kind of ask any questions you got, and we can always schedule a time or maybe even just a phone call to help answer some of those questions. Because again, it's impossible for me to talk to everybody, right? I'm one person, but I'd like to give as much value as I can in the period I've got.
You talk to a hell of a lot more people than I talk to, so it's you're doing pretty good there.
Yeah, I mean, it's but there's an element of I'm just trying to get the information out that our country just does a really poor job of educating people on.
Yeah, no, that's exactly why I wanted, other than catching up, why I wanted to have you on, because I think this is education that needs to be talked about, that especially for creators that need to know about the financial side. Everybody has the dream of being financially independent, and hopefully this will give them some more steps to get closer to that.
Yeah, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to your audience, because I mean my wife's a creative, a professional portrait artist, so I've seen the hurdles for the last 12, 13 years of what her company started as, where it's grown to, and a lot of what's helped. Like obviously she's got the ambition, she has the skill, the know-how, the language, the marketing, but a lot of what has helped free up her bandwidth is that the skills that I've developed over these last 5 years were like, oh, we can actually leverage this to accomplish that. We can actually move money here and it would free up this. So it's just, it takes a unit, but I think it's terrible with numbers. Like that's the thing, is she would never sit head in the sand, never look at it. And then once it started looking at it and having a real conversation around it, all of a sudden it just started.
Everything opened up. Yeah.
It was one less thing running in the background of her RAM, right? Just taking up CPU power, whatever analogy you want to use. But it's like, yeah, I think people don't realize like how much, like there's a reason your shoulders are here. And it's not because you just sit down all day. It's because there's literally the weight of the weight.
Yeah.
There's so much. So just start taking it off. Offload it. Or take the 30 minutes to have a conversation. It doesn't have to be me. Like that's how passionate I am about this industry and the service. It's really important to find the right person, right? you can be asking the right question to the wrong person for sure. So you got to be really good at assessing, like, does this person have my interest at heart or their own? Like, is there an agenda there? But like, I don't care if people say, Justin, you're not the advisor for me. I don't care. I just want you to do the things that you need to do.
You're passionate about helping people, however that works, and that's why it's, it works. The passion is there, and I think getting people to take those steps is hugely important. So no, I love it. I love the energy behind it.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm glad that whenever I get passionate, you're always there to lend a ear and just let me get that out.
Of course. No, you ranting is my favorite thing, because it's just like, oh, Justin still got the energy. Hell yeah.
I swear in another life, I would just be next to Socrates, just sitting under a tree, just thinking about superficial crap all day. Because I love the human experience. And it's been, as an introvert, it's been really cool to have to learn how to tango with other human beings, especially a subject that is money. That's so emotionally charged.
Oh man. Yeah.
It's been fun to kind of just take it, feel it, and go, ooh, here's how we're going to like that.
Absolutely. Get your life in order and I'll help you.
Sure.
Hell yeah, man. Well, for everybody watching and listening, I will see you next time. And I'm going to thank you so much, man, for the time and for the info and the knowledge.
So appreciate your time. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.